6 pieces that are very powerful. They're pre-BiS for all the warrior specs, all of them. And a couple of the pieces are BiS for the entirety of the phase, which probably sounds a little bit unbelievable. But these Centurion leg plates are a piece that you would never replace. But they're not going to be gotten by most people because getting them is an absolute nightmare. But we'll get more into that in a second. First, let me prove to you that these 6 pieces are important. You wouldn't want to just take my word for it, after all, right? So let's see. I want to show you that in the top 10 warriors, these items are selected all the time. But quickly, let's go over what these guys are doing so we're on the same page. There's only 2 of them that aren't arms. That'd be the number 10 guy, who's dual wielding and is Fury, and the number 8 guy, who is dual wielding and is also Fury. Everybody else is going some kind of axe spec with 2-handed arms, so they got this spec, except for Chris WL, because he has a mace, and the mace spec sucks. So his whole spec is just a little bit different than everybody else's. But my point being that 8 out of 10 of these guys are rolling with 2-handers, okay? I think it's pretty easy to say that the way your stats balance is going to be very similar across all these people. If 8 out of 10 of them are using a 2-hander with almost identical talents, and some of them literally are. So let's see what pieces they have on. Remember, we got to check out these green ones. So just pay attention to the green names. I'm going to say how many of the pieces from before each of these guys has. And so that way you can get a sense for just how important these must be because of how frequently they get selected. So we got 3. We got 4. We got 4. We got 2. We got 3. We have 5. We have 4. 4 again. 5. 5 again. Okay, so that's a lot of numbers, but I think it's safe to say that we're averaging like a 3 or a 4. So it's like more than half the pieces I listed are used by everybody in the top 10. And like I said, these Centurion leg plates are a piece that you really should consider not getting, because if you check the top 10, this guy is actually the only one that has them. You see, everybody else is using either these things, which have 26 total offensive stats, and they have more of their stats in Agi. So I think it's obvious that the Centurion leg plates are better than these. Or they're using Scarlet leg plates, which have 10 less stat points, which I also think is very obvious. Or they have this, which may convince a few of you that I am wrong. It has 21 offensive stat points, but it also has 1% hit. So basically what I'm telling you is that I think 1% hit is worth less than 9 Agi in the extreme case. That's what I'm arguing, and that is what I'm arguing, okay? You're not putting words in my mouth. I think that. And then you see the rest of these guys, yeah, they don't have the Centurion leg plates or whatever. But how are we going to then make the decision of, well, should I just skip getting those pants? Should I skip the 10 stat points? How would a rational person determine this? Well, they find out how much every single stat point is worth, and so that way they'd know how much DPS they're giving up. Let's do that. How would we do it? Well, you'd have to use a simulator, and ideally you'd be simulating with the optimal setup, because the top guys are probably doing that. And checking their rotations before, they are. They're all using these abilities that you can see here in the middle of your screen now. I'll give you a really quick rundown on what the rotation is. When they get a free slam, or they have precise timing activate, they're going to use slam. They're going to do MS on CD, basically. They're going to do whirlwind on CD, basically. They're going to do execute, I don't want to say on CD, but on CD when it's available. They fill their extra globals with hamstring when nothing's going on. They immediately overpower unless they have a blood surge stack that they want to consume before they stance, because this makes them more rage efficient. And if they have a bajillion rage, you see this, like they're capping on rage, then they throw out a heroic strike. Otherwise, they don't do it. They all have the same runes and stuff too. You can check those out. Some people got quick strike. It just depends, but they basically all got the same stuff. Now, let's see what the stat weights are. Since we have all this information, we're able to tell the sim to change what the gear that we're simulating with is just a little bit and see how the DPS changes. This would mean that for any player playing in this way with this rotation, they can move around their stats using these ratios and make sure that they have the optimal DPS. And what's cool is that we can actually take these little values that are getting generated right here, and then we'll just put them right back into 60 upgrades. You do it like this. You go to edit, you go to equivalency points, you put in your points here, you see these values are almost the same because I set this up earlier because I'm doing this kind of live. Yeah, so it's the same, and now that means that when you go and check here on 60 upgrades, you'll actually be able to see how many points the next best piece has. So really quick, let's show how the Centurion leg plates are really good. You see it has 23 points. All the other pieces have less. That's according to the Sim's evaluation. So the Sim agrees with me. Okay, it's not as good as you people think it is. All right. And so we'd scroll down until we see a source that is easy to get. Some people might think random item I've never heard before that's a world drop will be cheap. I don't really buy it. I don't think it will be cheap. So I think you'd have to keep on scrolling down, and this is going to be the first reasonable piece to get. I don't think there is a better contender. So you could save the amount of time it takes to get the Centurion leg plates and in exchange gain 10 offensive stats. How big of a hassle is it to get these leg plates? They are the best. You'd think that it can't be that hard to get them then, right? Shouldn't there be people wanting to do it? And you'd be wrong there, because this is a level 52 elite quest, and sadly, the rewards are only good for us, which means that everybody who isn't a warrior is not going to want to help you out with this. And sadly, there are some prereqs too, you see? And it's not like just one quest, it's a few of them. So I think that considering skipping the Centurion leg plates is the optimal decision for most people, because it's going to be so much work. So I'd say ditch the Centurion leg plates. My argument is that 10 offensive stats is not worth doing all of these elite group quests that are meant for level 50s. Do you really want to spend like 20 hours finding a group? If you have a bunch of friends that are warriors and they love parsing and pushing the limits, this will be easy. Go ahead and do it. If you don't know people want to do this with you, skip it. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. What about the other pieces? Same deal with Warforged chest plate. But in a second, we're going to get to the good news. But you gotta suck up some crap news again real fast. Warforged chest plate. Why is this a oh brother? A level 50 elite quest. Any faction can do it, but there's some stuff you got to do before this too. Let's load this up really quick, and we will see that there are prereqs. Well, that's fantastic. There are prereqs for this, and so that is a problem. What's the next best alternative? What are you giving up if you don't use this? Well, remember, we want to look at the sources, and we want to scroll down till we see like something that's easy, something we can reliably get our hands on. That's going to be something like this. So you're giving up 9 offensive stats. Okay, so if you give up 9 offensive stats, you don't have to do some group quests again that are elite. Honestly, I think it's a good idea. Another reason why is because look at this. There are tons of pieces that have super similar stats to this that you can get from Nomergon. So you'll get something that's as good or better than this eventually anyway. So screw it. Screw it. The other 4 pieces, my argument's going to be get them, kinda. So these flying experiment shoulders, this is not a lot of work to get, and they're really good. The next best piece is not very good. Look at this. Unless you want to get random roll tiger pieces, which some of them will be cheap, but most of them will be a bajillion gold. So definitely get these shoulders. These last few items, they're all actually super easy to get quest-wise, but we're going to ditch a few of them because you can get Imperial leather gloves and lose 1 strength, but these are like super easy to get, so why wouldn't you? And it's the same thing with this belt, the Scorpashi set. I'm sure this is a set you've heard about if you've been playing WoW for a long time. It's the same thing as the Imperial Leather. It's just a set that people who play the game know about. This drops so much, it'll be easy to get. You get that. Okay, so you trade 3 gold, you get to skip out on doing like 4, 5, 6 quests between these 2 items. Is it the same deal with these boots? Oh yeah, you betcha it is, but you're not going to be getting these Blackforge Greaves because this is a set that most people haven't heard of before. And so since it's a world drop, it's going to be super duper expensive. This won't be a realistic option for you unless you like buy gold or something, I guess. What about these boots? 16 offensive stats versus 19. So you give up 3. Okay. So if you get these items, what do you got to do? You need to get the gold to buy these 3. It's going to cost you nothing. Basically 0. All right. How many stats are you giving up from getting these 3 items? 4 offensive stats. How many stats do the better items give you sum them all together? Like 60. So you lose 10% of your offensive stats on these 3 slots by getting pieces that take 0 effort as opposed to pieces that take effort. What about these shoulders? Well, here, getting the lazy shoulders is as big of a penalty as getting all 3 of these lazy pieces. So since these shoulders take as many quests to do as any of these pieces, you definitely should do them. And in fact, a lot of you probably know how to get these shoulders because it's from a famous quest. It's the egg stuff with the robo chickens that are like all over the world, and you do like escorts. It's 2 parts. Go ahead, do it. That's the only quest I'm saying you have to do. You need to get these shoulders. They're super good. Go ahead, grab it. Screw the Centurion legs and the Warmonger chest. They're really hard to get. You're going to do excellent damage. If you want to decide on if you want to skip any other pieces, what you'd want to do is bring up the sim with whatever pieces you think you may or may not want to have, and then you could unequip them. So maybe you're trying to say, hey, if I give up 10% of my stats because I want to not use a helmet. Why do you not want to use a helmet? Because you want to use the sunglasses in raid. Okay, it won't actually let me pick that. But yeah, let's say you want to raid with the sunglasses on. How much DPS would that cost you? Okay, it would cost you 10% of your DPS if you swap from the BiS helm to being a sunglasses I'm so cool raider. Maybe I'll do that.